Thank you for joining JD Messenger, the show that shares knowledge and experience from global experts. Now, once again, your host, JD Messenger.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is JD Messenger. I'm the founder of the Messenger Institute, and our mission is to discover your path, your passion, your purpose, and your power, and to unleash that power to live your best life. We work on helping you align and balance the inner game of thoughts and beliefs with your outer game to succeed in life. And it's my honor and privilege today to be interviewing a dear friend and colleague, Jonah Larkin. Jonah is, you're going to discover, he is fun, he's passionate, and he's a real gem, as it says on his website, some of his testimonials. Jonah's passion is about energy and vitality and health and wellness. And so we're going to meet Jonah today and find out his backstory and learn about what makes him tick and what he's doing to help people live a happier, healthier, more prosperous life. Jonah, welcome.
Thanks for the kind intro, JD. It's great to be here, and I always look forward to our conversations because I always learn something.
So I called Jonah the surfing dude. You can see he's got a surfboard in the corner of his room. Did you get to go surfing? You're on the West Coast. And did you get to go surfing this morning?
Unfortunately, no, I did not get to go surfing this morning. You know, one of the things about surfing is you get to spend a lot of time driving around looking for surf and not actually surfing. So like anything in life, there's there's costs and there's benefits to it. And one of the costs of being a surfer is driving around looking for surf.
So what before we get into it, so we're going to learn more about how you got into surfing and all that, but I'm not a surfer. So what are you looking for? The wave height?
It's a combination of things, but basically you're looking for good waves, a wave that you can actually surf. So there's a number of things that can go wrong. It can be too small. It can be the wrong shape because of the wind. The tide can be wrong, or it can be too big sometimes. And so there's a whole number of things. As a surfer, you have to be an amateur meteorologist. You have to understand what's happening with the tides and the winds and the swell, and put it all together, and then decide, okay, I think this spot, I think Killers is going to be the place to go. I think the Canyon's going to be the place to go. And then, I can't tell you how many days I've spent driving up to that spot and down to that spot only to waste half the day and not even surf. So,
I did something, it's not at all related to surfing, but I did something really fun. My adult children took us out to a bar that was called Whiskey and Axes. And so this weekend I was learning all about, throwing axes and taking steps. And it was a blast. I had a lot of fun doing it. It was really cool. I never would have thought whiskey and axes was a combo though.
Hey, it's a good business model, especially in Texas, right?
Yeah. So Jonah, tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your backstory? Where'd you grow up? How did you get so passionate about vitality and energy and biohacking? And I know we're going to talk about some programs you have later about like the morning rhythm and what you do with clients. But let's, first of all, tell us who you are.
Yeah, thanks. So I think a lot of what shaped me was the environment that I grew up in. And I grew up in a very small rural town in Northern California called Mendocino. And as a kid, I remember just basically roaming around the woods with my pocket knife and exploring, essentially. So there was a way in which I think being in such close connection with nature pretty much all of the time helped to actually regulate my nervous system in a certain way. I truly believe that being around so much nature for so much of my early life actually helped to regulate me emotionally and physically. And so what that means is that I don't get knocked off center very easily.
You're grounded.
Exactly, exactly. And so growing up there, it was a very boring but healthy environment to live in. And by boring, I mean we didn't have a lot of money. I grew up in the 80s and the 90s. There wasn't really the internet. We didn't have a TV. And I was just forced to entertain myself. And what did I do? I learned how to I learned how to build forts, and I got pretty good at building forts. I climbed trees. I explored. I um, would ride my bike around. I started to learn to surf. So there was so much in terms of nature and the things that I could do in the natural environment that I spent a lot of my time doing that. I also spent a lot of time reading, a ton of time reading. I mean, I remember a friend of my dad's gave me an encyclopedia set, and I swear to you, I would like go through that encyclopedia and just read.
Huh.
That was my entertainment.
That's really cool. I haven't heard that one before.
Yeah.
So did you get into healthy foods? Like were you with one of these families that was like a vegetarian, or, or your own gardens and things like that? Because I know.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I didn't know even what healthy foods were. I just thought it was the way things were. We had chickens and we had goats and we had a garden. And what that meant was that every egg that I ate came from the chickens on our little plot of land. Uh, Many of the vegetables that I ate came from my parents' garden. I drank goat milk. We had goat cheese, and I do distinctly
Sounds good.
remember. Yeah, it was amazing. I do distinctly remember, and my mom will tell you this story if you ever meet her. I went, and somehow I think we were at a restaurant or something like that. It might have been like a Denny's or something like that, and I went and had ordered scrambled eggs, and I remember eating them and being like, Mom, these eggs don't taste right. What's wrong with them? They don't taste right, because it's just there was such a huge difference between eggs that we would go and collect every day from our chickens that were
Yeah.
eating bugs and worms and all that, and kind of standard eggs. So I didn't even know what healthy was. I just thought that was the way things were.
Mm-hmm.
And so later on, when I started adventuring out, obviously I found out that, oh yeah, not everybody has had the privilege of growing up with this kind of environment. Yeah, I feel super blessed that that is what I was able to experience, because I feel like it fortified me in many ways, like not just mentally but also physically.
When did you start you've been an entrepreneur your whole life, you're very entrepreneurial. When did you start using sort of this passion about energy and vitality and health and nature as a vocation or calling?
Well, I remember when I was about probably 4 or 5 years old, and I remember that I saw my dad sit down to meditate, and he didn't meditate all that much, but I remember seeing him, and I just didn't get it. I was like, what the heck is he doing? Like closing his eyes and like being silent. And I asked him, I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, meditating. And so I got this idea that something amazing must be happening inside. Like there just must be something amazing. And so that was my original fascination with the inner adventure. I was already attuned to the outer adventure, but that was the first time I really got attuned to the fact that there was something else going on inside us that I couldn't see. And that was the first time that I started to really get interested in that. And then when I got to college, I discovered Qigong and martial arts. And I started doing Taekwondo, and I started doing Qigong, and I started to do these inner energy cultivation practices. And that's when the whole world opened up to me. So that was really
Is
started.
that where you got some of the health and wellness certifications that you have, or was that after college?
No, that was actually after, because I went on even though I was very much into martial arts and qigong and health. I mean, health has always been a theme in my life. I've always been an athlete, and I've always tried to eat really well, and just like, it's not even like trying to. I just kind of had this natural ability to know what felt good for me.
Right.
And I mean, again, I feel incredibly blessed that I have that ability to calibrate. And so college was really, again, more about being an entrepreneur. And I started my first company before I actually, it wasn't even my first company. My first business was selling NFL football pencils to my classmates in fourth grade. That was my first business. I think that must have been it. But when I was in college,
I started pulling weeds for our neighbors for $1 an hour.
oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean,
Then I
it's very
elevated to
natural.
cutting grass, and then I elevated to washing dishes. And I'll tell you,
Okay.
washing dishes in the back of this restaurant slash bar was one of the most enjoyable jobs because of the characters involved. Anyway,
Oh yeah, restaurants have the most amazing characters for sure, without a doubt. Um, yeah,
so you started doing Reiki, or not Reiki? I don't know if you started doing Reiki, but acupuncture.
yeah, so acupuncture was, so what happened during college, I started a business. That business did not end up working out. It actually failed. And but I started another business which turned out to be quite successful. And I was one of the original people to sell skateboards on the internet. And so when I sold my company, I was completely burned out. I had gotten to the point where I actually had stopped paying attention to my body. And the result of that was that I was totally burned out, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I had no idea what was next for me.
Is that because you were focusing so much of your time, energy, and effort on like the business and the finance and selling it and things like that?
Yeah, yeah.
Why do you think that happens? Because you know that one of the most typical experiences of highly successful people is that they climb that, count myself in, you climb the corporate ladder, you work really hard for a long time, you get to the top, and you realize you're unhealthy, you're not really happy, you're not satisfied. And I know this is a part of where we're going, but why do you think that happens to people?
It's a good question. And I think there's probably a few different themes, but much of it, I believe, comes from conditioning and the way, and I'll just speak from my own experience. I was conditioned to essentially not fail. So failure was the worst possible outcome for me. So I would do anything I could possibly do to not fail. So when I failed with my first business, that was like a shot through the heart. And I was absolutely determined that that would not happen again. And so when I really started creating success, it was both intoxicating, but there was also a part that was unconscious. I wasn't aware of why I was so driven. And I was so driven because of my fear of failure. And so I was essentially willing to sacrifice my own well being for this concept I had that I had to succeed.
Do you think that's one of the, I'll call it a habit. You called it it's really, I talk about them being social programs, and faulty, limited, outdated programs, or flops is my term. And that we all have these flops, the social program that the things that you're supposed to do. You're supposed to make money, get a college degree, get married, buy a house, have kids, climb the corporate ladder, save money and retire someday. Now that was sort of the boomer programming. And I was recently looking, I think it was just over the weekend, at a survey of the beliefs of boomers, Gen X, millennials, and Gen Z. And
Wow.
of course, you probably know where that's going, right? Because they don't have that programming that we had.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I totally agree with you. I think flops is the absolute most accurate thing because it was going down a road and not understanding quite why I was going down that road. Um, Never really I hadn't really tested my own values at that point, truly. I mean, sure, I had tested some of them, but yeah, I was doing it not for me so much. Obviously it was for me, but I wasn't doing it because I had it well thought out. I was doing it for what I thought I was supposed to do. And that's what got me into that situation.
So, I'm a huge believer that, I talked about our passion, our power, and our purpose. And so your purpose is to help promote energy and vitality and self mastery.
Mhm.
And it goes back to a passion.
Mhm.
In my belief, that there's either a fear or a pain that we're trying to overcome, or there's something that we've overcome and now we're extremely passionate about it. Was there a particular time in your life where sort of like the spark, the catalyst of this passion about energy, health, wellness, vitality, it just like ignited you?
Yeah, it was interesting. So when I was 20 and I was in college and I decided I'm going to take a year off of college. This isn't really doing it for me. And I had saved up a few $1,000s and I decided to go to Asia. And so I flew to Asia and found myself in a meditation center in Thailand, in the north of Thailand in Chiang Mai. And I did a 30-day
I've been to
meditation.
Chiang Mai.
Yeah, it's
The
beautiful.
beautiful Buddhist temple there.
Yep, there's many of them. And so I ended up at a place called Wat Rampung, which is a Buddhist temple. And I at that meditation retreat, it was absolutely incredible. Um, and I learned a tremendous amount about myself. But one of the things that it actually revealed was that I had this deep, deep, deep fear of getting sick and dying.
Really?
Hmm. Yeah, and I think it's almost generational because my mother's father died of leukemia in the 50s, in the 60s and 1960s, and the way that the medical system was set up at the time is they didn't tell anybody, oh, hey, your dad's dying. It was like she showed up at the hospital one day and was like, oh, your dad's dying. And so it was like this major traumatic event for her. And I think I picked up on that. I think that was transferred generationally. And I was kind of named after him in a certain way. His name was Joseph, mine is Jonah. And so I had this innate fear of like getting this terrible disease and dying. And this meditation retreat revealed it for me. And after that, I actually ended up making myself sick.
Hmm.
I got very scared that I was going to get some horrible disease when I was cruising around Asia, and literally made myself sick, and not like horribly sick, but I just like felt lethargic all the time. I didn't know what was going on. I ended up getting a bunch of tests. Had been traveling around Asia for a year. Of course, they found all these different, parasites and this and
Right.
that.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
there was something I could glom onto. And at that point, I realized that, I realized that I had this like deep programming in me, and I wasn't necessarily aware of it, but that that inflection point was what started me really on the journey towards understanding what was happening on the inside and the power that thoughts, feelings, fears, hopes, aspirations can have on how we are. And so I kind of like held on to that through my entrepreneurial years. And again, after I sold my company and I was completely burned out, I kind of woke up. I had this like awakening of like, oh my God, I'm responsible for my life. And that was the first time that I really got it.
So let's get into some of the stuff you do. I know you've got a framework on habits, and
Yep.
we're talking about the inner game of thoughts and beliefs, and how the inner game actually is responsible for 80 or 90% of what happens in the outer game. And you just talked about an experience that one might call psychosomatic, something that was in your head. And something that's in our head gets stores in our cells, and it becomes like a program, and we don't even know it's running in the background. So you've got frameworks for habits, you've got programs for increasing your energy, your vitality, biohacking. What is it that you're doing right now to help other people, overcome or not have that kind of experience?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm doing a lot, basically.
And your website is jonahlarkin.com, so you can learn more about what Jonah does.
Learn more about me there. Yeah, I'm doing a bunch of different stuff, but again, all of it is basically about helping people to have more energy, more vitality, more awareness, higher levels of mastery, better health, all of that. And I'm doing it in a few different ways. So I used to be an acupuncturist. That was what I did after I became completely burned out. I went and became an acupuncturist. And so that I learned a lot doing that. And then I started going into functional medicine. And then that eventually led me into what I'm doing now, which is more coaching. And what I realized in working with people's health was that no matter what happened with their health, it almost always came down to what they were doing on a day-to-day basis, what they were doing with their bodies, what they were thinking with their minds, what they were feeling in their hearts, and what they were believing. And so out of that, I said, oh, wow, this whole thing's about habits. And when the pandemic happened, I said, I'm going to do a course about habits. And for me, the biggest thing has been creating a morning routine. That has been incredibly helpful for me to wake up every day, to meditate, to drink some water, to get a little exercise, to do some writing. And so I started a class called the 30-Day Morning Rhythm Reset. And I've been running it now for over a year. And it's been incredibly gratifying. I've had, I don't know, well over 100 plus, maybe 150 people go through it at this point, and we're starting to scale it up and offer it to more and more people. So that's one thing I'm doing.
What can you give us a couple of tips, for those that are taking the time to hear your story? What do you mean by morning rhythm and a framework for habits? What kind of stuff are we talking about here?
Well, the whole idea is to basically wake up feeling energized, feeling like you know what you're going to do for the day, feeling prepared so that you can go out and do the absolute best that you can do. And what I found is that starting the day off, and when I start the day off intentionally, then not only does the whole rest of my day flow much better, but the rest of my life flows much better, because I'm, as you know, based on what you teach, and I learned so much of this from you, JD, is that intention and the way we think has effects beyond just ourselves. And so what I mean by a morning rhythm or routine is doing whatever it is that you need to do in the morning to align your intention with your actions. And that looks different for many people, but there are some similarities. Meditation and contemplation or prayer, intention setting, exercise, journaling, um, anything that is intentional that's setting you up for success that day. And the framework that I have that I'd be happy to share with you is it's a simple framework that allows people to develop habits easily, because one of the things that I see out there, and if you Google morning routine on the internet, you'll find all sorts of things telling you why you should do it, but there's very few people who are actually telling you how to be successful. And so what the morning rhythm does is it brings people through a program that makes sure that you're successful in creating it.
Well, don't you think a big part, and I assume you're doing this virtually, right? Given COVID.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
But don't you think a big part of that has to do with just having an accountability partner, like making a commitment? Okay, I'm going to do this. I want to change my life. I want to improve my health. I want to wake up energized and excited. I want to get more focused. We did a program with all the mills on mindset and, focus and eliminating distractions and things like that was a big part of it. But what do you think about the fact that it's just a matter of setting an intention that I'm going to achieve these goals and then having a group of people that are doing it together?
Well, that's a huge part of it, for sure. Doing it with other people is one of the keys to success at any particular habit, whether it's running a marathon or eating better or meditating or what have you. Or I should say, and there's some other really important components to it. Like you said, the first thing is setting an intention. So the first is like, choose what you're going to do. And most people actually choose in ways that don't help them. So for an example, I'm going to get in shape. Like, what does that mean to you? Does that mean you're going to run a marathon? Does it mean you're going to lose 15 pounds? Like, actually you have to be super specific about what it is. So that's the first thing, is you have to choose it. You have to get super specific. The second thing, part of the framework, is to chunk it down. So let's say that you want to develop a running habit. Well, that can be difficult or challenging, especially when you wake up and you grab your phone and you realize you've been scrolling through your phone for 20 minutes and you're supposed to be running before work, right?
Right.
So you need to actually take any habit and chunk it down into smaller pieces. And so what I usually recommend for people is I say, make putting on your workout gear your habit. Because if you put on your workout gear, the chances of you doing it are way higher than if you don't. So start with that. So chunk it down into bite-sized pieces, into something that you can do in less than a minute.
It's funny how we get into a habit or a routine and it happens, we change a job, we move, or a relationship change or something, but it throws us off. We travel, we go, especially for, traveling people, which there's not as much of that anymore. But, I found that totally breaks up my routine. And then, you get in great shape for 6 or 12 or 18 or 24 months and something happens and you get thrown off and you're like, oh God, I got to start over again.
Yeah.
And just putting on the clothes and going to the club. And what I found helps me is like, okay, I can't go lift whatever I lifted or, treadmill is high on the elevation. And so I find myself when I have to get started again, just going there, even if I'm only lifting 10 pounds or even if I'm only walking 5 minutes, just getting back into that habit. That's what you mean by chunking?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Because we're as humans, we're always looking for the reward, right? Oh, if I go running for 5 miles, I'm going to feel great and know that I did it. But it's actually, like you pointed out, It's more important to do the thing consistently than to bite off more than you can chew and not do it.
What are
And
some of the outcomes of changing habits or the morning rhythm? What do people say is the result?
well, I've had people, I had a woman get her absolute dream job, and that happened really quickly within about a month. I've had, uh, I had another person, a woman who lost I think she lost like 10 pounds in 5 weeks, like kind of crazy. I had a professional coach who basically was able to pretty much cure her insomnia. I had another client, a guy, and he wrote a book. So in 30 days, he wrote a book. I
Wow.
mean, he had some editing to do, but things like that, because daily habits performed consistently over time create incredible outcomes. And if we look at any outcome in our life, it's a result of unconscious actions and behaviors that we've repeated over and over. So whether it's your health, your financial situation, your relationship with your significant other, all of that is a result of unconscious behaviors and patterns.
So we're about to wrap up here because we're about
Yep.
out of time. But
Cool.
what would you say to someone? And again, you can meet Jonah and learn more at jonahlarkin.com. And he's got the framework for habits and a 30-day morning rhythm and more. But what would you say to someone who knows they need to do this? You know, they're listening, they want to do it, but yet they still haven't done it. In fact, some people even sign up for programs or courses, or they buy the book, or they buy the clothes, they buy the gym membership, but they don't start.
Well,
So,
that's never happened to me.
yeah, none
It's
of
happened
us,
to all
right?
of us. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what do you say to someone? What is that issue about just starting? You know, the whole Nike just do it.
Well, that is the hardest part, right? It's the hardest part. And the advice that I have for people for starting is that you have to understand that there is a sacrifice that you're going to have to make. There is a cost that you're going to have to bear. And you have to understand that there's a cost to what you're not doing now, and there's going to be a cost to what you are going to do. And the first thing that you have to do is understand, oh, there's a cost whether I do it or whether I don't do it. So which cost do I want to bear? Do I want to bear the cost of being overweight? Or do I want to bear the cost of having to get up in the morning when I don't want to and go and exercise? It's up to you and it's your choice.
Well, it seems to me that the cost is rather simple. I mean, if I just think about myself, when I get it off, you know, out of rhythm, maybe too much time on social media, too much time surfing the business news or financial news, or um, too much time watching TV or something. So to me, the cost is what you're really talking about is finding time. And so I think of, and correct me if I'm wrong, what you're saying is if you want to create a shift in your habits, a shift in your routine, you've got to understand the cost of things, the sacrifices you're going to make, the things you're going to give up to get that extra hour, you know, to do these new things. Is that what you mean?
That's exactly what I mean. And then yes, the second part of it is like you touched on before, is team up with somebody, get an accountability partner. So
Right.
basically I've got I have a 5-step framework, and it makes it really easy. So you choose what you want to do, you chunk that thing down to its simplest part, you link it to another habit that you're already doing, you team up with somebody, and then you celebrate like you win no matter what. And so I say choose it, chunk it, link it, team it, win it.
Oh, that's
And
great. I like
yeah,
that.
Yeah. And that
Choose a
framework
chunk it,
basically,
team it, link it.
that's,
Win
sorry,
it.
go ahead.
No, I was just repeating what you said.
Yeah, yeah. Choose it, chunk it, link it, team it, win it. And that framework, bringing people through that framework allows people to build habits without all the struggle that we go through by trying to use our willpower. Because what I do is if you start to understand how neuroscience works, then you can use neuroscience to help your brain work for you instead of against you. And using willpower to try to create a habit is the worst strategy. And in fact, all the studies on the most successful people show that successful people use easy strategies, not difficult strategies. And unsuccessful people use difficult strategies. That's why they're unsuccessful. So you want to use easy strategies to create this stuff. And that's what the framework I've created does.
So last question before we go. I've gone through your program, and I'm celebrating. What is the greatest outcome that people get? The greatest, biggest benefit?
The biggest benefit that I've seen people get over and over is that they start their day with intention. And what starting your day with intention does is it starts to align your life with your intention. And when you align your life with your intention, then things start to go better for you and for the people around you. And as you know, if you're going down the wrong path in life, life will tell you that in one way or another.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's through the body, and you get sick, you get injured, something bad happens, whatever. But when you're in alignment, look, it's not like nothing ever bad will ever happen to you, but when you're in alignment, things tend to go a lot better. And so that's what I would say is the thing that people get the most out of, is they align what their intention is in their life with what they're doing on a daily, weekly, quarterly, yearly basis, and things go better.
I think the other thing that you get is you actually become a lot more efficient and productive. And so you get a lot more things done in the day.
Oh, you want me to give you concrete examples, huh, JD? Yes.
No, I just think that's
I totally agree with you. Yeah. I mean, one of the things that happened for me was I started working in sprints, and it's been a game changer for me in terms of how I get work done. And I work about 4 or 5 hours a day most of the time, and I can get most everything done in that.
Great. Well, Jonah, it's great interviewing you. Thanks for sharing your story. Thanks for doing what you're doing and helping improve people's lives.
Thank you, JD. You've been a great, and you've been and continue to be a great inspiration for me and so many other people. And I continue to learn a ton from you and combine it with my own experience and create more goodness and vitality in the world. That's what I'm here for.
Great. Okay. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you spending the time and sharing your knowledge and wisdom here.
All right. Thank you, JD.
All right.
Have a great one.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good night, folks. Thanks for being here.